All right, this is the Oz Report for November 29th, 2025. And we're going to do it a little bit differently today. I have a new section on the Oz Report, or several new sections, and we're going to restructure it a little bit. I hope you like it. Please give me feedback either on YouTube or on my Discord on how you like it and what you like about it and what you like to see differently. And today I've decided to include several new categories. Let's start with the first one. The first one is feedback. So I've noticed that a lot of you relieve feedback on the podcast, on YouTube, and also in Twitch chat or on our Discord about things that I may have interpreted differently than you think, or additional information that I might not know, or just generally, you know, interesting comments, which I truly, truly appreciate, right? There's a lot of noise in YouTube comments, and there's a lot of hate going around as well. But a lot of you spend a lot of time writing thoughtful feedback on YouTube, and I massively appreciate that. So I've decided to share some of that to not also, correct previous things or amend previous things I might have said the week before, but to share interesting information with you that you might have missed, right? If I missed it. This week, I want to talk about three things in terms of feedback. One is we talked about the salvage market and as a result, also rig prices going up. And I didn't mention the PH collapse last week in that connection. I'm pretty sure. And so several users, including Import Monster and House of Seabar, said that, of course, if you have an entire alliance and 55,000 accounts or however many it is moving across the nation and having their structures destroyed, that's going to have an impact on salvage and salvage rigs and on salvage and therefore rigs and structure rigs. And so that is a massive impact on this market that I didn't mention last week. And that's, much appreciated. You're absolutely right. That's again important this week because again this week we're seeing salvage going up by 20 to 25%, even higher than it was last week, resulting again in tier 2 rigs going up another 10%. And so we've had salvage prices very, very low because of exploration and the changes to exploration. And now the current political landscape have pushed salvage prices up a lot. So I'm sure CCP is happy about it. But, overall, very exciting times to be around in Eve. We're seeing record numbers and very interesting political changes. All right. Now, the second thing I want to mention in terms of feedback is the no FOMO dev blog and what people interpret it as to be. So a lot of people, I have the feeling that a lot of you interpret it as there's not going to be any more sales. And that's of course not true. Of course there's going to be sales. Of course there's a Black Friday sale going on. That's the way that gaming companies run nowadays. I don't think you can run it successfully, an MMO successfully without doing that. What they have dialed back on is the magnitude and the cadence of these sales. So that absolutely curbs FOMO overall, and I don't think having a Black Friday sale impacts that, right? So I just wanted to put that into perspective for those of you thinking, oh, why is CCP still running sales? I thought they weren't going to do that. Of course they're going to still do that. It's still a massive difference to last year. And the third thing is that so many people commented that they're coming back to the game. Fantastic. We've had on both weekends since the expansion where we've hit 40K accounts online. Of course we also see that there's 7 days free Omega for existing Omega accounts, and there's 7 days Omega for 10 Plex. But we've had that before, right? And we've had even more free Omega before, and still we're hitting player numbers now that we haven't seen in 5 years. So I just want to say welcome back, and thanks for commenting on my video when you're when you're coming back. Okay, that's the quick feedback section at the beginning. And so please, if you're watching this later on YouTube, please comment in the comments. I want to hear, especially if you have interesting additional knowledge that I can benefit from and that I can let the community benefit from as well. All right. The second category that I want to make a regular, and one of you guys suggested that as well. Possibly Paul Harkonnen. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it may have been you. Is the market cap. All right. So how many times or how big was the trade volume this week overall compared to historic values? And we have that on our Oz dashboard. You can always look this up. This week, the overall trade volume was 190 trillion, which is just below last week, and massive numbers. Okay, last week trade very high, this week trade very high, and I'm so happy to see this. We have high player numbers, we have high production going on, we have trade going on, and I think we're finally seeing a turnaround on a lot of the metrics that define activity in EVE Online, and I'm very, very happy to see this. So good to see this. All right. Now, while we're talking about market volume, I want to talk about some of these items in here because that's even cooler. Number 4 most traded item in EVE Online, and that means after Plex, large skill injectors, and skill extractors, items that are always going to be 1, 2, 3, right, is the Odysseus. Number 4, 1.4 trillion traded. Love to see it. I've seen a lot of hate for that ship, a lot of love for that ship. People say it's just not good. It's amazing. The spectrum is huge, but you can't deny that a lot of people obviously wanted to fly it. And you also, what people unanimously say is it's a good looking ship, right? So people love flying it, people love trading it, and that's it. The other thing that we see on here is the Orca squeezing in here. The Orca at 10, 578 billion traded. That's also massive. So clearly the Orca is out there for various reasons. One of the big ones is to boost prismaticide phased mining sites, right? And so amazing to see the catalyst expansion having such an impact immediately out of the gate. Love to see it. Love to see it. Now, let's talk about Cerebral accelerators real quick, because I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, right now we have event Cerebral accelerators out there, the basic Radiance ones. And I wanted to give you a quick update on the current pricing, because the pricing hasn't increased that much. They're still an amazing deal. And again, using the feedback you've sent, right? Yes, of course, these expire in January. You should know this. Keep this in mind. But right now, they're the cheapest way of gaining SP in all of New Eden. So don't ignore them. If you want to click every day, then use the basic ones. They're by far the best deal. If you don't want to click every day, you can use the extended Radiance Cerebral accelerators, and they're 488 ISK per SP, and that is still, 4 times cheaper than the largest permanent alternative. And so, just PSA, keep an eye out for these Radiance ones. They're all over the place. The market is way oversupplied, so there's enough for everyone. Just go buy them and use them. And it's just good to know that they're out there. And then the other thing is that the Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators are at parity right now in terms of ISK per SP with the New Eden Store Boost Cerebral accelerators, and they're all very, very cheap. The Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators are cheap because people were selling a lot of them. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Not going to talk about it again. The New Eden Store ones are cheap because Plex is so cheap. So we're seeing Plex prices under 5 million, and that means that buying these, they're bought with Plex, and so they're getting cheaper. So overall, so many things are impacting the price for skill points, that most of these prices are sliding, and overall skill points are becoming much, much cheaper in Eve. And I can show you that by going into the game client and looking at Plex and Plex adjacent items, right? Let's have a look. First of all, Plex has been dropping rapidly since the introduction of the global Plex market. It's come down from 6 to under 5 million. The global Plex market is partly responsible for that, but it's not entirely responsible for that. What we're seeing now is a culmination of the global Plex market, a massive Plex sale that we recently had, a very, very good one, and Plex being added to packs being bought in the New Eden store and in the, not in the New Eden store, in the Eve store. And fourth, and very, very importantly right now also, there are, was it 55,000? 55,000 accounts having to deal with asset safety in the drone lens right now. And so for them to get all their stuff back and get it out, they need a lot of ISK. And a lot of them have resorted to buying Plex packages. I know this because a lot of people also use my Oscode to do so. And thank you, by the way, for doing that. But it shows that, right now, the internal politics are also impacting the Plex price. And so what we're seeing now, what is it? Buy order prices of 4.75 and sell orders just under 5 million is very, very cheap. And I've got asked several times today whether I think the Plex price is going to keep dropping or rise again. And I do think right now is an especially perfect storm for the Plex price to be pushed down a lot. So I actually do think that right now is a good price to buy Plex, because I think it's unlikely to drop even more, because I don't think CCP is going to run any more of these sales that we've seen in quick succession now in November, because otherwise I would start doubting the no FOMO message. And I think that internal politics again have dropped the price even down even more. And so I do think overall that Plex is low right now, and it's more likely that it will rise than drop. Now, let's look at skill injector. Okay, so if we look at the skill injector price, as I said, skill points much more readily available nowadays and have dropped massively. We're seeing 52-week low prices on skill extractors right now. The sell price is 740 million. That's something that a few years ago you could only dream about. So very, very cheap. And again, 7 days free Omega, or 7 days Omega for 10 Plex, depending on your status, means that a lot of people have resurrected old fully trained alpha accounts and used this opportunity to extract them. And so that's why you see the interplay of large skill injectors dropping in price by a lot, and at the same time skill extractors rising in price, because you need the extractors to extract all of these alpha accounts that you've just recently awakened with your 7 days Omega. And so all of this, it makes perfect sense. I think overall it's still quite healthy. I mean, we haven't seen this Plex being this cheap in a long time, which, has a few drawbacks, but overall you can't deny that people being able to sub for cheaper is a good thing, obviously. So, not always for CCP, but for the player base right now in this situation, it's certainly good that we have a period of cheaper Plex. All right. So we've talked about Plex. Another thing I want to mention is drone components. We don't talk about drone components a lot here, but if you look at the market movement this week, Rogue drone components up 74%, right? 74% overall. So a lot, like a lot of these the drone component market is really only 2 or 3 big items, and one of them I've taken them out here. We're going to the game client to show you. One of them is drone cerebral fragments. Okay, they definitely saw a recent bump, yeah, and the other one is Elite Drone AI, which saw a massive bump, and clearly this has to do with the drone lands being vacated or resettled, however you want to look at it. But a lot of these components were coming from there, right? And so it's clear that rising prices here are not necessarily the direct result of already a lot less supply, because there's going to be stockpiles, yada yada yada. But you're always going to have speculators that are going to come in and say, oh, a lot of stuff is happening in the drone lands. I'm going to try to predict the markets and try to buy up what I think is going to be a scarce supply in the future. And so, lots of stuff again happening in politics, which is resulting in stuff like rogue drone components going up 75%. And yeah, so today, much more of a macro Oz report. Somebody's saying in chat, isn't this used for mining drones? Yeah, the Elite Drone AI specifically is a big component, not only in the normal mining drones, but also the excavator mining drones, which are what used to be the pride of everyone running Rorquals. And with the mining expansion, certainly also demand increasing. So it's a double whammy for rogue drone components. Thanks for sharing. Okay. I hope you like it. Again, if you have feedback to the new structure, then do let me know in the comments, and we're going to return to the regular stream. And